Our podcast reviews well-known movies and contains spoilers. The podcast may contain mature subject matter and mature language. Listener discretion is advised. Enjoy the show.
Quiet on set. Places, everybody. And action.
Welcome, everyone, to the Hooked on Movies podcast. Today, we will be looking at the 1987 romantic comedy drama Broadcast News. With me are Ken.
I say it here, it comes out there.
And Ted.
I like you as much as I can like anyone who thinks I'm an asshole.
And hey, everybody, I'm Eric. Okay, I'll meet you at the place near the thing where we went that time. This is Broadcast News. Ted, give me the details of this one.
Okay, Broadcast News was directed by James L. Brooks with a screenplay by James L. Brooks. It has a running time of 133 minutes. It was released December 16th, 1987. It has a budget of $15 million and a box office gross of $67.3 million. Broadcast News stars William Hurt as Tom Grunick, Albert Brooks as Aaron Altman, Holly Hunter as Jane Craig, Robert Prosky as Ernie Merriman, Lois Chiles as Jennifer Mack, Joan Cusack as Blair Litton, and Jack Nicholson as Bill Rorschach.
What do the critics think of this one?
Well, the critics really loved this movie. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a certified fresh score of 98%.
Ooh,
impressive. And it has an audience score of 79%. I could not find a negative critic. Everybody was at least 3.5 or above for their ratings. So I did grab two positives. I got Vincent Canby of the New York Times. He said, "The movie is a sarcastic and carefully detailed picture of a world Mr. Brooks finds fascinating and also a little scary." And then Roger Ebert from the Chicago Sun-Times said, "Broadcast News is as knowledgeable about the TV news gathering process as any movie ever made, but it also has insights into the more personal matter of how people use high-pressure jobs as a way of avoiding time alone with themselves. Brooks, almost alone among major Hollywood filmmakers, knows that some people have higher priorities than love and deeper fears."
It's a good review.
He gave it a 4 out of 4.
All
I
right.
actually got to see a clip from Siskel and Ebert, and Siskel adored this movie, especially Holly Hunter. He really loved her performance. They were reviewing Wall Street and Throw Mama from the Train, and I think Empire of the Sun.
Wow, that's a big episode.
Those are four big movies, yeah.
4 big movies, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Spoiler alert, they hated Throw Mama from the Train.
Well,
Really?
yeah. When you're
Yeah,
comparing
and
it to the other 3 movies there.
And they liked Wall Street, but Siskel didn't like Wall Street half as much as he liked Broadcast News. He thought that this was kind of like an Oscar-worthy performance for Holly Hunter.
Was
he
it an
nominated?
Oscar special?
No, it wasn't an Oscar special. It was
Okay.
just these were the movies that were released at that particular time.
Wow.
You know, that's a good question about was she nominated or not.
I know it was nominated for 7 awards,
It got 7
including
awards
Best Picture.
nominations.
I don't know what those 7 are off the top of my head.
I know Albert
should
Brooks was nominated for Best Supporting. He lost to Sean Connery for The Untouchables that year.
Ah, yeah.
So I was listening to a little interview with the director, and the director was like, they had named Sean Connery the sexiest man alive that year, and he made a comment about women beating, and they thought by that comment that he made that maybe Albert Brooks would be able to win the Academy Award for Best Supporting Actor. But I guess
Was this him talking about his wife?
I don't know.
Keeping her in line or something?
Something to that extent.
Yeah.
I remember very vaguely about but I knew it happened. When Sean Connery died, people were kind of like, oh, I guess the wife beater actually is finally gone. So
Wow.
I like Sean Connery stuff. But
I love Sean Connery. But
Yeah.
it's weird that he would be nominated for Sexiest Man Alive by People. That just seems, I guess it's just his voice and
I think it was long overdue. He was if this was during the 60s when he was James Bond,
Sure.
Very understandable. But I mean, look at who they've had as Sexiest Man, before. So we could just throw that out the window.
That's a good point. So any other reviews?
Nope, those are the big heavy hitters.
Okay. Well, let's talk about the first time we saw this movie. How about you, Ted?
The first time I saw this movie would definitely have been in college. I was going through and watching a lot of movies at that time, and I have a particular interest in movies that have been nominated for Best Picture. And, of course, with William Hurt and this whole cast, essentially, the three major actors were definite interest. But amazingly enough, this is a movie that I hadn't really come back to before this week. And so I was happy to come back to it and almost kind of with fresh eyes again.
You know, I'm noticing a trend here as we go through this podcast. We're pretty much on the same parallels most of the time. I watched movies in high school, you watched movies in college, and Ken's a cable guy.
Right.
That seems to be our go-to on these.
Cable guy.
Cable guy. Let's see. I'll wager the odds here, Ken. First time you saw it, cable.
Most definitely on cable.
Shocking.
Yeah, this
Big
is a very
surprise.
Interesting movie for when I saw it. Before I actually go into that, I will say that this was nominated for Best Picture, Best Actor for William Hurt, Best Actress for Holly Hunter. And then I already said Best Supporting Actor for Albert Brooks, and then Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Film Editing. And it didn't win anything, but it was nominated for all those. But I will say this, as far as seeing it for the first time, Holly Hunter was what really drew me into this. Just watching previews of her, there was something about her that kind of made me want to watch the film. So I remember it very vividly. As soon as I saw the preview for this movie that I wanted to see it, it was mainly from watching her in the trailer. And like Ted, it's been a while since I've seen it. It's been probably a good somewhere between 10 and 15 years, probably since I've last seen this movie. So I'm happy we decided to jump into this. I'm looking forward to talking about it.
For me, shocking. It's high school. First time I saw it sometime in the late 80s, early 90s. Probably early 90s. Another blockbuster video villa rental there. I watched this movie recently, probably within the last year.
I actually bought this like within the last 6 months on
As
the
did I.
Criterion Collection.
Well, not Criterion, but part of my used DVD copies. I watched it after I bought it, and I'm like, wow, this is kind of like Ted. I hadn't seen it in decades. It's one of those movies that's kind of slipped by, but I really enjoyed watching it again last year, and I guess we'll see how it held up, right, in our reviews down the road.
Yeah, and and there's scenes that are indelible from the movie, and we'll talk about probably most of them, but it was nice to come back to.
Absolutely.
I got to see this with my son for this review. He had never seen it, and he actually enjoyed it. And I was wondering if he would, since, this was made 10 years before he was even born. This was an interesting film to come back to.
And, like a lot of the movies we watch, this is an extremely dated movie when it comes to network television, news programs. Everything is analog. Nothing is digital. It's kind of a throwback for me and Ken here in our radio days, watching all the editing and stuff. I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, someone of a younger generation that can appreciate it is always something that I think is a positive when it comes to a movie that can withstand the test of time. So Ken, tell us about the plot of this movie in case there's someone out there who has not seen it.
Jane Craig is a talented news producer whose life revolves around her work. Her best friend and collaborator, Aaron Altman, is a gifted writer and reporter. The two work in the Washington, D.C. Bureau of a national TV network. The bureau hires Tom Grunick, a local news anchorman who started his career in sports. Tom is tall, handsome, likable, and telegenic, but lacks experience and comes off as not being too bright. He consistently seeks help from Jane to assist him with his reporting. Jane resents Tom's lack of qualification, but finds herself attracted to him. Tom is also attracted to Jane, but is intimidated by her skills and intensity. Aaron and Jane go to Nicaragua to do a report and get caught up in a shooting between rebels and the Contras, but remain unscathed and bring home footage that wins the approval of their national anchorman. At an office party, news arrives of a Libyan plane having bombed a U.S. military base in Italy. The network chief decides to put out a special report on the spot, with Tom as the anchor and Jane as the executive producer. Aaron, who is at the party, has extensive knowledge about the subject, but is devastated at Tom's selection. Jane argues that Tom lacks the skills to handle the responsibility of the report, but is overruled by the network chief. Watching from his home, Aaron calls Jane with pertinent information which she feeds to Tom through his earpiece. With the combination of Tom's on-camera poise and Jane's hard news skills, the report is a great success. Their teamwork also intensifies their mutual attraction. When Jane returns for drinks with her colleagues later that evening, she meets Tom as he's leaving with coworker Jennifer. Jane later selects Jennifer for an extended assignment in Alaska so that Tom and Jennifer will not be able to pursue a relationship with each other. Wanting to complete the story without outside assistance, Tom creates a piece on date rape. The piece includes an extended interview with a rape victim where Tom is shown tearing up in a reaction to her story. In the face of potential layoffs, Aaron receives an opportunity to anchor the weekend news due to most of the colleagues going to the White House Correspondents' Dinner. He seeks advice from Tom, who encourages Aaron to be more salesman-like in his approach. Aaron writes high-quality copy and takes Tom's advice, but during the broadcast begins sweating uncontrollably, resulting in a disastrous broadcast. Meanwhile, Jane and Tom begin to progress romantically at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. But before things get more involved, Jane leaves to console Aaron. The two have a heated argument where Aaron tells Jane that Tom represents everything Jane hates about the direction of news media. Aaron also tells Jane that he's in love with her. The forewarned layoffs hit the network, resulting in many colleagues losing their jobs. Tom is moved to the London office, indicating that he is being groomed for a national anchor position. Jane is promoted to bureau chief, and Tom and Jane agree to take a romantic getaway together before starting their new jobs. Aaron tenders his resignation and tells Jane he plans to take a job at a local television station in Portland. Before he leaves, he tells Jane that Tom's tears during the date rape piece were staged. Reviewing the footage, Jane realizes that Aaron is correct. Jane angrily confronts him at the airport, saying that his actions were a breach of journalistic ethics and that she cannot in good conscience become personally involved with him. Tom argues with her, but eventually relents, leaving Jane behind. The three meet again 7 years later. Tom has taken over as national anchorman. Aaron has a wife and child, and Jane has a new boyfriend. Jane reveals she plans to take a managing editor role for the network in New York, working with Tom again. Tom leaves after Jane decides to decline a dinner invitation with him and his fiancée, while she and Aaron sit on a bench and catch up on their respective lives. The end.
Well done. So Broadcast News is one of those movies that has a very, very unique opening. It's one that's quite memorable. So it starts off with our three main characters as children. And I gotta say, the actors and actresses they got to play the children of our three main characters, they do a hell of a job. I mean, they are so believable. They're great actors, and they set up our characters just perfectly. All their idiosyncrasies, all their likes, their dislikes, their personalities. It's great how it just rolls right in to the current day characters. What do you guys think?
I like all three of the kids, though I would say the one that plays Aaron, Albert Brook's character, I like him the least because I just feel like the look doesn't really match the adult, where the other two child actors kind of more look like the adult version. That's the only problem I have probably with all three of them. I love the fact that we get Tom as a kid. We find out that he struggles with school, that he tries hard. It's not that he doesn't try, it's just things don't click with him. You know, his dad has to get him a tutor, and he gets excited about that. I mean, he really wants to learn. And so I think that's a great setup. And here's a great example where we don't need a lot of backstory. We find out from what they're like as kids that sets everything up for the rest of the movie. It's a great way to start off this movie.
Great opening indeed. How about you, Ted?
This is a really unique opening. Like Ken said, it's a table setter that is really, really good. I also agree with Ken. It doesn't take a whole lot of time. Each little vignette is like maybe 3 minutes long, but it goes a long way to set up everybody's personality. And I'll be honest, it pulled out of me and it clouded my vision for the rest of the movie of who my two favorite characters are. The character that I feel the most sympathy for is for Tom. He, as a kid, he wants to do good. He's trying. It's really good.
Yeah, I get what you're saying here, Ted, because I think without this at the beginning, Tom is not as sympathetic without him as a kid.
Right, you think he's just like a conceited asshole.
Basically, that's the case, but we get to see him as a kid, and then throughout the rest of the picture, we remember that kid. Remember that kid that struggled but wanted to do well, but just had a hard time doing it. And throughout the movie, he's just trying to seek approval and guidance. And other people take that as being as an asshole,
Aloof, yeah.
Working on his looks, which he's also aware of. Even as a kid, he kind of mentions that he's a good-looking kid.
Yeah.
I mean, that's kind of funny. But at the same time, we appreciate that. And I like the fact that later on they bring the dad in for just like a minute. Mm-hmm. I mean, he really doesn't play any real good part there, but it's just nice to see that relationship with dad. I don't even need the dad to be there. I love the phone call to dad. When he's talking on the phone, he says, I think I could do this job. That's when you really are proud of that kid that you saw at the beginning of the film.
Exactly. That coupled with William Hurt and his brilliant acting here, having that little bit with his dad at the beginning, it makes you feel for him the rest of the movie. He feels hurt by the way that Holly Hunter talks to him. And he's legitimately disappointed that somebody would be that cruel to him. And he doesn't understand why when he's trying. So it really sets up a lot of the interactions between the three characters later on.
I love the fact that you're bringing that up, because then we look at Jane. Jane kind of goes off on her dad, at the beginning as a kid. And then she goes off on William Hurt's character, Tom, in that same fashion at the motel. And I love the parallels there, because we're able to connect how she is because of this child that we get to see years before. They only take a couple of minutes just to set up these characters, so you don't need the tremendous backstory. It's all taken care of within a couple of minutes for each kid. I think that's just amazing. And then you got Albert Brooks' character, the smartest one in his class, but he just doesn't have any social skills. At his high school graduation speech, he basically just rips on all the other kids.
Everybody.
But the only problem I have is, what kind of graduation is this where all the kids are hanging out after graduation just to watch kids beat up on another kid? Where are all the parents? Okay, where are all the parents at? They just...
Kid's not liked, I guess, huh? He's young. He's not them.
I get that, but it's a graduation. Most kids are not going to go wander off to the back and have a kid beat the crap out of him. He would just go back to his parents and hang out with them.
Did he graduate early?
Yeah, he did. He was young. He graduated early. Let me guys ask you a question. It's a dumb question. Maybe you can answer it. Why does Jane cry all the time?
I was going to ask the same question.
I couldn't figure that out in all the times I've watched this movie. Coping method or something?
Yeah, I believe it is. Because she is so high-strung, and she's so energetic, and she's so intense. In order to come down from that intensity, she has to let out the cry. Because we see all the different times that she cries.
Right.
It's after high-intensity type of situations, especially when she's in Nicaragua, and she's afraid she's going to get killed, and then the next
she's in a gunfight. Yeah.
So I think she cries a lot after intense situations. We see her cry after William Hurt's character goes off and has sex with the other.
But isn't it right when she wakes up from the hotel in the opening scene with Albert Brooks? She cries when she gets off the phone with him, and that's not intense.
She unplugs the phone.
Yeah,
it's like she does it on a It's like she takes a time out of her day.
Right.
To give herself a cry. Back in the 80s, there was things like psychologically and everything that people were talking. These fly-by-night psychologists would say that you're supposed to laugh once a day, cry once a day, and have some self-reflection once a day. So that's kind of where I was thinking that it was coming from. But that was a question I was going to ask. So it's not a dumb question at all, Eric. Because
Great minds think alike, right?
Right. I couldn't figure out for the life of me. I think it's kind of amusing because she immediately gathers herself back up again.
Right,
and is off.
Exactly. And nothing happened, just
it's
gets
a balancing thing.
Out. Yeah.
It's a balancing mechanism for her. When I first watched it, I was kind of turned off by it. But then when I got to watch it over again, I kind of more and more accepted it. And it was good to hear that Holly Hunter herself, a couple days into filming, was crying. And the director came up to her. It was either the director or William Hurt came up to her and asked her what was going on. And she made some excuse. And he went, "It was just you being scared. And it's okay for you to be scared." And I think that's the other thing is, I think these characters are so invested in their lives, more so than anything else. That's why when we talk about the love stuff later on in this film, why it doesn't work for these three people is because their jobs are so important to them more than their love lives. I think because at any minute that persona, the job that they do, can be taken away from them, it's highly stressful. And so I wouldn't be surprised if all three of these characters cried at one particular time, but we get to see it from Holly Hunter's character.
You get the feeling that with all three characters, at different points of the movie, they feel like frauds. But the only person willing to admit it is Tom. He gets yelled at because of it.
Why do you think the other two are frauds?
No, they think they're frauds.
That they think they're frauds. And I think that might play some into why she's crying there, too. They're all three self-deprecating at different points of the movie.
Yeah, like Albert Brooks on the phone call, she says, This conversation is beneath you, because he thinks he's slipping, and he's wondering, is it because he's really good, or if it's because he's really not that good? I think there's part of them that doesn't think they belong where they're at.
Right.
And I think that's normal for everybody. I think everybody, in a certain situation believes maybe they don't deserve to be there. At least I believe that for myself. In certain circumstances, I will say to myself, I don't deserve to be here, even though maybe I definitely do. But there's just part of me that has that self-doubt. And I think that's good to have a little bit of self-doubt. It's not great to have a tremendous self-doubt.
If you have no self-doubt, then your ego is writing checks you can't cash.
And we get to see the person that has the ego. And that's where I think Tom is different. Because we see Jack Nicholson's character. He's all ego.
Oh, he's awesome.
He has stabbed people in the back to get to where he's at. And Tom does not have that. Even to
but everyone worships the ground this guy walks on, too.
Right,
hey,
exactly.
Did he buy everybody dinner afterwards? Do you think he still took everybody out afterwards when they all lost their jobs?
No. And I
wouldn't
think
shave that million off his contract, would he?
Yeah. I think that he had Tom shipped off, too.
Probably did.
And they don't show him at that final speech that Tom gives to take when he's taking over the head anchor job. I guarantee you he probably didn't even show up, because I bet they booted him out.
Yeah, probably
and
did.
The director says, well, why don't you shave another $1 million off of your contract? And there's like, I'm just joking. Well,
right, because everyone's afraid of him.
Exactly. In 7 years' time.
He probably got nailed in some sex scandal or something, let's be honest. Or he said something to somebody.
Most likely.
But he's old. I mean, come on, let's be honest. He's not a young spring chicken, and he's probably made his money. He's probably done. But one thing about Jack Nicholson here... I
don't see him stepping away gracefully.
No.
Maybe not, but we don't get to see any of that. And it is 7 years later. It's not like it's, a year or two. It took a while for him to come back. You're probably right. He probably was the big reason why he got shipped off to London. But like they said, London is the area to get groomed. If he really didn't want him to take over his job, he would have had him put somewhere completely different. But one thing about Jack Nicholson that I like here was the director indicated that he wanted him for this part because he needed an anchor that just intimidated. He just couldn't get any old actor to play that part. It had to be a big, strong name, strong actor like Jack Nicholson to do it, because then you could see everybody else really worried about his opinion of what they did. Especially Albert Brooks' character, especially when he just doesn't even acknowledge Albert Brooks at all throughout the whole film. Even at the end, him and William Hurt's character get together and, shake hands at least, but nothing for Albert Brooks. Nothing at all.
I love Albert Brooks. All he wants is just to be known. When the daughter of the network president.
Oh, yeah.
We went camping for 2 weeks on the raft.
And that's the director's daughter. Director's real daughter. No. I wore the raincoat, with the one with the hood. Yeah. That's why you didn't see me, because I was under the hood, right?
Right.
But that's a typical Albert Brooks' character.
It is.
In fact, this part was definitely written for him, because him and the director are friends. In fact, the director has kind of been in all of Albert Brooks' movies, kind of like in the background, but he's
no relation, though.
Just really good friends. This part was written for Albert Brooks, whereas they waited 6 months for William Hurt because he was doing another project. But
was it The Big Chill?
It probably was The Big Chill.
When was Big Chill? I don't think...
86. 86?
Maybe. I feel like it had to be something else, though, but I don't know what that would have been. And then Holly Hunter was not well known. She had done, I think, a TV series or a TV miniseries, and I know she did Raising Arizona, but it had not been released when they were filming this. And he got her 2 days before filming. He had a hard time finding the right actress for this part, and thank goodness that he found her, because she is awesome here. All the performances are really good.
Yeah, my opinions of Holly Hunter in this movie is I think she was made for this role. The accent, the clothing, she's not very stylish in this movie. When you think of broadcast people in the 80s, style was not their big thing, especially behind the scenes people like Joan Cusack's character and stuff. They're just putting on the daily clothes. But she is really good. She is dedicated 150% to her job. She takes everything personally, and everything is a challenge. Her commitment to ethics, I think, is a little over the top. Like the news has to be the news. You can't stage someone putting shoes on. You can't stage a tear. Everything has to be authentic. And she holds that like gospel. It is probably her highest ethic. And if you break that ethic, as we saw William Hurt's character break that ethic, there is no going back. And if there is going back, it's going to take some time for that wound to heal. But she is just incredible in this. I can see why she got the nomination. Rightfully deserved. The whole cast rightfully deserved. They all worked so well together. And I really liked the ending of the movie as she grew and how she progressed into a person that takes more chances, like she was going rafting or something, or no, skydiving or parasailing, or I don't know, but something that her character would not do. And
wasn't it water skiing?
It might have been water skiing. Yeah, I think it was water skiing. Yeah, because he had a boat. Something she would never do.
High sense of morals comes from others before her teaching her that. She seems like the kind of person that relies on people before her teaching her how things should work in news. And that's why she doesn't like John Hurt's character, because he's the new kind of regime, the way that news is going to be looked at moving forward. And that's why Albert Brooks warns her about him and torpedoes him by telling her, what has happened, is because he knows that she hates what the news is starting to become. And she's trying to latch on still to that old ways of doing that. And the way you were talking about how people look. Now, I disagree with you, because in the 80s, I think it was all about style, to be honest with you.
Not for backroom people.
Not for backroom players.
People that are not on the camera.
But Joan Cusack, I think, did try to look stylish, but she did not. And that's because she's not an on-air personality. When I think of her and the way she looks, there's that little meeting they're talking about where they're going to start downsizing, and she's actually in that meeting. She just came from crying a little bit earlier, right? And she looks like she has no makeup on, and she's very plain Jane looking. But what I like...
No pun intended there.
But the look that she has is very girl next door look. She is kind of like someone that you would know in high school. And this is how I related with her so much in Albert Brooks' character.
She dresses like a teacher.
She does, but what I'm getting at here is she reminds me of a crush I had in high school, where this girl was a very good-looking girl, but she wasn't, like, in my opinion, like, beautiful. People didn't think that she was, like, exotic or, like, the hottest girl in school or whatever. But
was she a teacher?
But she was cute. No, she was just a student like me. No,
okay.
No, I didn't have a hot for teacher Van Halen type of thing going. No, that's not me. But I was the witty guy, kind of like Albert Brooks, but not as intelligent as Albert Brooks puts it. I related to that relationship between him and her. She was my best friend, but she was also my crush. And I love the line that he has later on. I wish you were two separate type of people, so I could tell one of you how I feel about the other. So I thought that was a really good line that I could relate with. And I could relate that as a 17, 18-year-old kid watching this movie for the first time. And that's why I like this movie so much, because I can actually grow with this movie. As I got older, I understand more about, because me and Eric, we went to broadcasting school, and I did some film editing, so I know a little bit about some of that stuff. I never actually got to work in TV or film, but I got to work in the radio stations and stuff, and saw the high turnover. I'm sure, Eric, you probably saw high turnover probably in radio as well.
Absolutely.
So we understood all that. So
yes.
This movie, just for me, works in so many different levels. But it's the Holly Hunter-Albert Brooks relationship that I really draw to throughout this whole movie, not the John Hurt one. In fact, I actually don't even think that relationship truly exists.
William Hurt,
sorry. I said John Hurt. That would have been a totally different
movie.
Totally different movie, but hey.
Yeah.
Why not?
Because their relationship is only good when they're working together. When they're working together, William Hurt and Holly Hunter's characters are great. When they're trying to do something romantic, it doesn't work. And maybe that's on purpose, because of the fact that the most important thing to both of them are their jobs. That's why I say that the relationship is awkward. And we'll talk about it at the end about the ending and everything. But at the end of the day, the reason why it doesn't work is because their first love is their job.
Holly Hunter here, this is an amazing character for her. I think what we're going to find out when we go through each one of these characters is that the writing here is really good. And that's why I asked Ken if who won the best screenplay, because the screenplay is amazing because the characters are so real and relatable, just like what Ken said. Especially with her, you know what her idiosyncrasies are. She's very set in her ways, like you said, Eric. And it's to her fault. And that's too bad because I disagree with Ken. I think that there is a relationship that could have been had between Holly Hunter's character and William Hurt. I think that there was some chemistry there. It just keeps getting derailed. In some parts, ambition, in some parts, by other people.
And that's what I'm saying. It's probably written that way. And as far as best screenplay, Moonstruck.
Okay. I can see that.
I get that one too. I think this is better, though. I think this is better.
I think this is probably a better movie. I agree. That's a tough decision. I'd have to really sit and think about that. It's almost like Holly Hunter's character, because like Ken said, she's kind of a plain Jane type of a character.
Next door neighbor cute is what I think.
Right. You kind of get the feeling, because I had mentioned before, each one of the characters has this self-deprecating aspect to them, and it's almost like she doesn't believe that somebody that looks like William Hurt's character would actually be in love with her. And I think that he really, truly is. And it's almost a self-sabotage every time they get close. I feel for the character in that sense. And it's obvious that she's the best at what she does. It's undeniable. She has an eye for the talent. So it's no surprise that she's moving up. It's a complex character. And she's definitely the person that you root for in the movie. Because she's ultimately super relatable. If that makes any sense.
No, her character definitely is relatable. I can see a little bit of myself in all three of these characters.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why the movie kind of resonates with me and resonates with other people.
It would be kind of odd not to be able to, because I think they really encapsulate most of society in one aspect or another.
I think you could relate to all three of them in certain ways. William Hurt's character, he's unsure of himself, but he's kind of assured of himself. It's kind of a weird situation because he is confident. When he gets on and delivers the news, he does it with confidence. And in fact, he even shows Albert Brooks how to do it when he's getting ready to become an anchor. And he has some great advice for him on how to do it as a salesman. What you have to do a little bit in radio or on TV, you have to gain the trust of your listeners in order for them to trust what you have to say. So there has to be charisma there. There has to be a used car salesman kind of deal with it.
That's why Walter Cronkite was the voice of America's conscience for as long as he did the news. And there is a salesperson there. You do get that feeling that Anchor is a part of the family.
I love the part where William Hurt's character, they're doing the news and they're doing that Libyan airstrike thing. And there was a part where Holly Hunter just goes off on the person because they lost the person that they needed to get. And so William Hurt's character had to kind of like ad-lib for a second.
Right.
And the panic on his face before he did it, I love that. Because he showed all that confidence, just doing it with her feeding the information and him bringing like maybe a teleprompter and things of that nature. But then once that happened, he freaked. But he did all right. He did okay because he has some experience delivering the news. I love that feature of him. But like I said, there's bits of each character that I like. And I think all three of them at certain points show their strengths, like confidence. I can relate with that because sometimes I can really show confidence. But a lot of times I also get scared to death about certain situations. And all three of them show that, especially when we talk about later on with Albert Brooks' character and sweating when he's on the news. He gets that one chance to become an anchor and everything just goes wrong. I think these characters are really well written. And I believe this is the director's second film. He did Terms of Endearment before this, and I believe that one was well written too. I'm not a big fan of that movie so much. It's maybe too much of a tearjerker for me, but you could see where the writing is. And for somebody who didn't live being in the news, he did surround himself with other people that did, and he brought them in so it could be authentic. I just think he's very smart on how he approaches his writing and approaches his directing, because it feels like you're in an office room. You know, we've talked about other movies that had that office feel, and I know one of Eric's favorite movies, Network.
Love Network.
But I would actually argue that this is a better newsroom story, because we did All the President's Men before, but that was a newspaper. This is TV.
Correct.
But the office setting, they are both solid. We talked about how authentic looking the office was, how they created that office look. And that's what they're doing here. From what I understand, they rented out a floor out of an office building and just turned it into a news place. You wouldn't have guessed that. You could have thought that this was from a real television station based on how everything looked.
Oh,
and
definitely, for sure.
It just reminded me so much of All the President's Men and how they did that as well. And we were like, wow, we thought they took over like the Washington Post. And instead, they recreated every nook and cranny of the Washington Post. And that's how they did it. So authenticity is so important. And I think that's why this movie has strength at, is the look and in the writing.
It does have the underpinning of the authenticity that you get with like All the President's Men and with Network. And that goes a long way to gaining the viewer's trust in what they're watching. That's a definite element to the whole thing. The part of Holly Hunter's character, though, to go back to her, that frustrates me the most is the ending.
You don't like the ending?
But I'm talking about the scene just before the 7 years later.
The airport scene?
Yeah, I don't agree that it was ethically immoral what he did, because there was a point in time, and you hear it on the video, that he was almost crying anyway. So it's not that big of a stretch that he would have showed emotion. I think she's just being way too hard on him. Would she have sacrificed a relationship based off of something, and I don't want to say trivial because it's important to her, obviously, but it seems that it's not as gotcha as it's supposed to be. If they had come and found out that the lady that he was talking to was a paid actor, then I could see, then he's a fraud, not just a crying. It doesn't equal up for me, especially because she does have feelings for him.
But you know what? They do set it up with the shoe thing when they're in South America. I understand what you're saying, and I thought it was kind of weird that he pretends to cry afterwards in front of the person he's interviewing.
Yes, that was odd. You're right.
Is it her that says, "Oh, that's kind of remarkable that you can do that"?
Kind of impressive you can do that.
Yeah, and I'm like thinking, wait a second, you just gave a heartfelt story about a guy who raped you, and you're impressed about a guy who's fake crying. I would think she would have taken offense.
See, that scene is kind of like a culminance of like society of the day, if you will. Mm-hmm. You know, how the news is almost manufactured. Is her story 100% credible? Who knows? He's manufacturing it on her end. She might be manufacturing it on her end. It's all for like the publicity.
You know what? I also think it's because he lied about it. If he would have probably been right up open to her about what he did, because she was impressed with him. When she kind of started falling in love with him was that piece. When she saw that piece and him opening up, they went to that back room and they talked about it, and she told him how that made her feel. And he could have came up and gave her the truth right there, but he let her believe it. And I think that hurts. Not just more the ethical thing, but also because he lied to her. And if he could lie to her about his emotions there, is he going to lie to her about his emotions later on?
That's what she believes. Yeah, that's how she feels as well.
Didn't necessarily see it from that point of view. Yeah, I can see what you're saying.
Now you do.
Let's talk about William Hurt's character.
Tom's my favorite character.
Is he?
Yeah. For one, I love William Hurt. I think William Hurt is an amazing actor. Almost everything that I've ever seen him in, I like. I identify a little bit here with his character Tom, because Tom, he wants to be smart, he wants to be good, and he's always looking for like the validation that he's smart and that he's good. And when he is good at something, like being a TV anchor, he's really good at it, and he really knows what he's talking about. But yet, when he's amongst the intellectuals is where he feels inferior. That's very relatable. on so many levels. And that's where I really see that. Like I said at the beginning, when we see him with his dad, that scene impacted his character for me throughout the movie, because he's the only one that's, I think, really in touch with his emotions, because he is open, always looking for somebody that he can help, or somebody that can help him, because he wants to learn and he wants to know, and he finds the smartest people. If Albert Brooks' character would have allowed him in as a friend, this is who Tom looks for. He looks for the best and the smartest people so he can learn from them. That's a very admirable quality. But when he knows something, he knows it. Right down to, he tells Albert Brooks' character how to sit and everything and how to sell the news. I feel bad for him on many different occasions because his feelings get hurt. Because he's put himself out there for Holly Hunter's character, and she's rebuffed him on a couple of different occasions. And his feelings are hurt, and it's completely understandable. At the beginning of the movie, after she has that really bad speech, she might be a little tipsy, it's hard to see. He's like, I don't want to be a piece of meat. And he walks out of the room. And also, too, she hurts his feelings because he's put himself out there. I identify with him a lot. I think he's the most authentic person here.
Kind of disagree with you. I still like the character, but he's not my favorite. In fact, he's my least favorite of the main three. That scene with him and Holly Hunter in the bedroom, he doesn't tell her his intentions. He doesn't tell her the truth that he's going to be working with her. That's not fair to her. Right off the bat, he's getting information from her. He's deceiving her again. So this is one of many times where I think he kind of lies to her. And the fact that he's trying to get her evaluation of his situation and then calls her up afterwards after he leaves, telling her, I'm going to work with you starting on Monday. That's unfair. And I don't really like that move because she's indicating that she's interested in a sexual kind of way. And he took advantage of that situation for his career. That's how I looked at it. And he kind of tries to fool his way throughout the whole film. One of my favorite scenes is with him and Albert Brooks when they're together and they're talking, and he gives a speech about how he feels he's not good enough. Then he says, I told myself one thing when I come work with you guys, that I would never try to pretend that I'm more than who I am, that I know more than I do. And then Albert Brooks puts him to the test on that. He goes, do you know all the cabinet members? And he's like, of course I do. And he goes, name them. And he's like, I'm not going to do that. At least tell me that you know them. And he goes, I know them. All 12 of them? Yes. There's only 10.
Well, but here's the thing.
Great line.
Albert Brooks is doing that to belittle him. He knows that he's being not necessarily made fun of, but that he's being ridiculed by somebody who looks down upon him because he may not be as smart as he is. That's one of the things that I really disliked about Albert Brooks' character. How he's constantly looking down his nose at everybody.
And that's his character, but William Hurt's character is also, I think, a little bit of a fake when it comes to the sympathy card. I think he tries to really milk that sympathy card a little too hard because somebody really wouldn't want to tell everybody how dumb he really is. He's in a profession where he needs to show confidence, but he's trying to get the sympathy vote, and then when he doesn't get the sympathy vote, he gets mad and walks off. He does it in the hotel room, and he does it again when they're out on the balcony. Same situation.
But he is being honest, though. I believe he wants
just
to...
lied. He just lied. He said he knew all the cabinet members were...
That's an understandable thing. If you're being ridiculed, you're going to go, oh, yeah, of course I know him.
Because he just said that he was never going to lie about what he knew. He just said that.
I disagree with you about that, about his reaction there. In my opinion, it's a completely understandable reaction he has to being ridiculed.
He should have went on the offensive and said, "Are you making fun of me?"
Yeah, that would have been a better way.
Put it on Brooks' character as a defense now. Yeah.
But he knows how to play the game. William Hurt's character knows how to play the game. He plays stupid a little bit too hard on some aspects. And other aspects, he is a little slow of learning. He does need guidance and things of that nature. Did he really know that London was a step down? I think so. I think he thought he was getting demotion.
He probably knew what it meant, and he didn't want to make other people feel bad. That's how I read that situation.
The reaction that he had in the office when he was first told made me feel that he thought that was a step in the wrong direction. So I do think there was part of him that has a hard time catching it, but there's the other person who knows how to play the game. It's that salesman. And what he's trying to do is sell you a product. And he's trying to tell everybody that I don't deserve this, so people don't come after him. But
he wants to succeed, but he knows that he needs other people's help to get there. And that's why he's trying to make allies. I don't think he's being vindictive at all by aligning himself with Holly Hunter. Not
vindictive, but I think he's trying to make sure that he gets that sympathy vote, that he gets people's sympathy about, he's not so bright. I want to help him. He doesn't want them to be mad at him for getting a job he doesn't deserve. So he uses this excuse. And then when people tell him that's not good enough, he gets mad. And that's why he walks out on Holly Hunter's character in the hotel room. He can't handle the truth.
He got his feelings hurt by her. The way she talked to him, he even says it. He didn't like how she talked to him.
And she doesn't like how he talks to her. He kind of belittles her, too, and he says some things that are very inappropriate. Like when he's in the newsroom and he goes, is this because I walked out on you, at the hotel room? He makes her feel bad at times, too.
It's a legitimate question.
Well, but the way he does it is in a kind of snobbish kind of way.
Yeah.
Is it because, I didn't want to have sex with you? It comes off as being jerkish. It really does.
Yeah. I mean, he has his moments of that as well. He's not a perfect character.
I do think he's a perfect character, even though I don't like his character as much as the other two. I think it's well written. I think it's well rounded. The only thing I don't really care for is, do we have to see his dick shadow? That might be the only thing I don't really need in this movie. That whole scene didn't really even need to be around.
You can get that in body heat.
We don't even get to see that correspondent lady again. And she gets sent off to Alaska, and we never hear from her basically ever again. And I think that was a kind of a funny move that she did that. But at the same time,
that was a dick move.
That was, but very cool.
I just felt like that scene was just like out of place for everything else. Kisses her before they go into the car. We can assume that they went out and had sex. We don't really need to know that they did, because all we care about is Holly Hunter's reaction of that relationship. I don't think we even really need that. I mean, that closet was very impressive, and the dick shadow probably was impressive too. But
if you can,
if you gotta use it, right? Come on.
Exactly.
I guess they were like talking about how different we could shoot it from different angles and stuff like that. I don't know. It's just so weird. But overall, I do like his character and that he's very genuine. I love the fact when they go into the room together when everybody's lost their job and he congratulates her on getting her job, and she's getting mad because he's not upset about what's going on. And it's because he's been through it before. And he even has a great line that I can't remember, but it's something like, he can't be any more depressed than he is right now. And so basically that's why he's congratulating her. And I really like that. So I do think these characters are well-rounded, because we see times where he's a jerk and some other times where he really cares for people. And like when he first gets to the control room, when they're rushing to get that tape edited and into the thing, and William Hurt's there, and the guy drops his pen, and he's like, boom, right there with the pen. And he's like very considerate to some people. And I think that's really cool. That's one of my favorite scenes, by the way, in this whole movie. We could talk about the sweating incident, but I love the intensity of trying to get this tape edited. And Joan Cusack is hilarious here.
You're never gonna
make it. And then all the things she has to do to get from one end to the other end to get that tape in.
Yeah.
And I guess she almost hurt herself with the file cabinet scene when she has to like kind of slide underneath that. By the way, her brother, John Cusack, was actually slightly in the film. He plays a delivery guy who gets mad when walking out, I guess when everybody else is getting fired. We don't see his face, but that is definitely him.
One of the things, too, that can be overlooked about William Hurt's character is, like I said, he wants to surround himself with the best people, and he cares about what other people think. That film editing guy, nobody really talks to, and he's just always talked at, and nobody asks his opinion. And William Hurt asks his opinion about a cut, and the guy looks at him, he says, "Thank you for asking me that. Yeah. Nobody's ever asked me that." I think that really shows his character. I like what you said there at the end when they're in the office and everybody's being fired. It's that interaction between him and Holly Hunter that makes me think that they would be good for each other. She can bring him kind of back into a reality type of a thing, but then he can also bring the levity to her that you should be happy for the things that you do have and not so fatalistic. And, I've been through this, but let's be happy that you've done something good. That's why I rooted for them as a couple, because I think that they would be really good for each other.
I didn't feel that way only because I think it was set up incorrectly in that sense. If you really wanted to develop a true love story between the two, that first scene when they're at the hotel, there should have been some type of attraction on his side. She wants sex. I actually thought the only thing he wanted from her was information.
No, I read it completely differently.
For that scene itself, I didn't think he was interested in her in a sexual way. In fact, I felt like he was a little weirded out about going back to her room when she says, let's go back to my room. And I think if they both had that sexual attraction at the beginning of the movie, then maybe I would have been a little bit more on board with the romance side of it. But also at the same time, there is no romance side on the other part of the triangle here. I mean, you have a love triangle that's not really a full love triangle, I guess. No, and you're not wrong for probably reading it that way. I just don't feel I'm wrong for reading it the way I'm reading it as well. But I wanted to touch base on some of the other characters real quick before we get to Albert Brooks, because this is our Albert Brooks month. I want to save him for last here. Robert Prosky, who plays Ernie, he's the chief. He's the one that Holly Hunter's character gets his job at the end. I like his character a lot, and the fact that he is very a nurturing type of boss, kind of like groom Holly Hunter's character into that role. Of course, it's not something he wants her to get into right away, but I love the fact that he takes, Albert Brooks' character out for a walk to talk about what's going on with the jobs and kind of pre-warning him. I love the line where Albert Brooks is like, I need to be alone for a while. And he goes, I understand. I'll join you. And they walk off together. Characters like him don't get enough credit for those type of roles.
He's a good character actor.
But the other guy, Peter Hacks, is that, I believe, how you say his name? He played the guy who ends up firing these people. The one guy goes, I hope you die.
I hope you die soon, yeah.
Yeah. He was in broadcasting for a while, and this type of thing happened to him. That's another guy that is on board here that you can draw information from to make this more an authentic movie. I love the scene with him and Holly Hunter when they're outside talking about Tom being the right choice to do the special bulletin. He tells her, he goes, must be hard to be always right. And she goes, yes, it is. I thought that scene was pretty cool. That told me a lot about her as well, because she has a lot of pressure on her to make everything work. And that's why I think she cries as well later on, because there's so much pressure on her.
She doesn't really think that Albert Brooks would have been better for that position.
I do think she does. And the reason why is because before that, we see Albert Brooks doing everything. He writes great pieces. When he's out there and with the rebels and stuff, he's cool under pressure and he's delivering the news. I can see why she has blinders on to not see that he wouldn't be a good anchor. The other guy, the chief, or
Nicholson's character?
The one guy that I told you about.
He's the head of the broadcast news.
Right, I don't know if he's president or
news
whatever.
Director, probably.
Yeah, but anyway, he sees that William Hurt's character, Tom, is able to do it because he has that salesman approach that we've been talking about. And Holly Hunter's character does not. Because she's surprised when it doesn't work out. She really thinks that he would have done good. And here's the thing. If she doesn't go to that dinner and she's there supporting him, he's not nervous. I think he does. I think he does the job, and I think he does the job well because she gives him confidence. This is where I'm going to go into the Albert Brooks character. Their relationship, their friendship, I can relate to. They have the perfect relationship. Well, I should say the perfect relationship to watch on screen. It's a very difficult relationship to have a woman friend who you're attracted to. Like I said earlier, I had a friend like that who I was attracted to, but at the same time, when we talked, we just fed off each other very well. It just came naturally, and that's what I see here in this movie. They're very natural together. It's a very good pairing between the two. When you talk about William Hurt's character and Holly Hunter's character kind of balancing each other out, and that's why their romantic relationship would work. It's the same thing between these two as a friendship. The differences between the two is a perfect recipe for a good friendship. And I do think that if she's there, she brings confidence. And same thing for him, for her. When she needed to give that information to Tom's character, he was on the phone giving her that information to give to Tom because they're a team. And part of that team was missing, and I think that's why he got nervous.
I disagree with that. In a lot of Albert Brooks movies, he's extremely relatable. And he is funny in a lot of ways. We talked about in Lost in America, how his sarcasm and wit is really good. Here, it's played differently. I'm all for sarcasm. I'm a very sarcastic person. But when sarcasm is used to denigrate somebody or belittle them, I don't like that.
But he feels threatened. That's the whole reason why he's doing it.
Yeah. If his character spent as much time trying to be the smartest man in the room and concentrated on maybe getting a little help from somebody else and taking it to heart and actually valuing. See, this is where he loses me, because I don't ever believe that his character values any other character except Holly Hunter in some cases. But he's selfish. He's very selfish. His character didn't resonate with me. And I get it. He's fallen in love with her, and she doesn't necessarily have the same opinion of their relationship and how frustrating that can be.
Well, think about this.
I've been there.
He's been infatuated with her for years. And then all of a sudden, this good-looking anchor out of nowhere blindsides him, and she is starting to be infatuated with him right off the bat. Of course he's going to go on the defensive and belittle this guy and point out every flaw he has, especially in front of her, to hopefully change her opinion. That's like half the movie right there.
And he's taking his job, too.
Yeah,
exactly. He's threatening his job. So there's two sides why he's being threatened, and he's using his sarcasm as a weapon against him because of that. It's real. That's what I like about it, is because it's real. I mean, if somebody comes in and threatens me and threatens a relationship that I have with somebody and threatens my career at the same time, how am I going to react? Well, I'm not going to think
how anyone's going to react.
I'm not going to think highly of that person. I might not say those things to his face like Albert Brooks does, but I think that Albert Brooks' character is extremely real, and that's why I like him. And he even knows he's a prick to him. He even accepts that. I disagree with you as far as he only cares about Holly Hunter's character. His boss is important. I mean, they have a good relationship. And then actually, I think he does acknowledge William Hurt's helped him prepare for...
He does, yes.
He knows what he is. He knows he is kind of a puppet. He would not have been able to do the job unless him and Holly Hunter's character was there to give him what he needed. Without them, he fails.
I disagree. I think that the sweating scene, which is the funniest scene in the entire movie, it's absolutely hilarious. And then his take on it afterwards is equally hilarious. He was going to fail in this situation regardless. He doesn't have what it takes. He's very good under fire. He's a reporter, but he does not have what it takes to sit in front of the screen and be the anchor.
Yeah.
I would agree with you on that if I saw a scene him doing it by himself, because every scene that he does it where he succeeds, Jane is right there with him, and I think they just work well together. I don't know what position he takes in, was it Portland?
Yeah.
Does he take an anchor position?
No, I don't believe it's an anchor. No.
I don't know exactly.
I don't know if they actually even say what it is. I do believe having somebody there that you feel confidence with relieves a lot of anxiety, relieves a lot of that worry, because you have somebody there that has your back. There's nobody there for him. There's not one person. They're all the correspondents dinner. He's doing this by himself. Who knows how many people are watching this? There's a lot of pressure on him. He's
people that called in and were worried about him.
Yeah, where he was having a heart attack, right? But I love his humor here. In fact, I like it more than I do in Lost in America, actually. Like, for instance, the scene where Jack Nicholson's character doesn't acknowledge him at all. He goes to Holly Hunter and basically says, laugh like I said something funny, so because I'm dying here. Mm-hmm. I love that because it's witty. It's smart. He's a very smart character. And we already know that when he was younger, he was picked on, crap beat on him probably on a weekly basis. But he even
kind of asked for that.
At the end, he did. At the end, we don't know if he did before that, but at the end, he definitely did. but at the same time, we know what he went through. And so now he feels like he's had the upper hand for a while because he is making more than $19,000 a year.
Before I forget it, let's talk about one of the most awkward scenes in this movie with Albert Brooks. When does he develop a Southern accent?
I guess I missed
You
that.
go to hell. That was the most awkward. I'm like, where did that come from?
Yeah, I don't know.
It was almost like he was doing like a Southern Belle impression of some sort. It was
that
really
the part
weird.
with Holly Hunter when he got mad at her and
Yes,
he kicked her
yes.
out?
He's-
Yeah,
Yeah.
I guess I missed that
He was
part.
probably making fun of her accent.
you go to hell. That's how he says it, like with a Southern drawl woman's
You go to
accent.
hell. You go to hell. You die.
He was probably making fun of her accent.
Maybe
that's
he
the other.
was.
That's the other thing that he does that really.
But I like it because it's real. I mean, that's the thing is this character is real.
You would be that mean to her?
I think he's
After-
that upset because he just gave his heart out to her. He shared his love for her. He had the worst day in history. Okay, for him, he
Yes,
he turned into a monsoon on live air,
national television.
national television, and then nobody was there to help him cope with that. He's probably been drinking. He's at home, and she finally shows up, and he's happy that she's there. You know, he's expecting her to, help him get through this, but all she wants to do is get back to him to have sex. And
Well, she's in love. He's very mean to her.
I think he goes a little
And-
tad overboard. I agree with you, but I
And
understand.
I think what he says to her when she is sad and everybody's being fired, and she legitimately asked him, "Where will you see us in a few years?" And he makes the comment, and this is what really turns me off from the whole character, is when he says that he'll look at his kid and he'll say that that's what happens when fat, lonely people. That's horrible. And the way he treats other people, that he's better than they are, it turns me off from the character from the get-go. So when he does crash and burn by sweating like
You
he's
think
being...
it's like a good retribution?
Yeah.
Tables are
it's-
turned.
Right.
How do you
And-
like it now?
Right. He got his comeuppance. He thought he was owed that position. And he come to find out that he can't do it. He needed to be humbled. That's the only time he's humbled in the entire movie. The way that final interaction with Holly Hunter, where she's sad and he says that to her, would she have really continued to talk to him 7 years later?
I think so. If they had the friendship that I think they had,
Yeah, I think so too.
I think they would have mended fences, and he even tried to take it back after he said it.
Yes, he did.
There was just a lot going on. He didn't want to even talk to her at that moment. She was forcing him to be there. He was upset, and he knew
There's
it.
still no reason to say
No, it's
be
no
that way.
reason. But at the same time, if I egg you on to tell you to talk to me, and then I talk to you, and then I say something stupid and inappropriate, is it totally on me? Or did you have something to do with it? She's part of the problem here, too. It's mostly his fault. Nobody should say that to anybody. And later on, we get his son telling Tom, this is the joke.
Yeah,
So, that is his personality.
The
And
pattern
we could-
continues with the children.
I mean, so that he's told his kids that this guy's a joke. And, he's legitimately earned his position too. So what did he really end up learning from this? I think everybody learns something here, but it seems like he's still stuck with that same attitude. And I don't care for it.
I don't think Albert Brooks' character thinks that he legitimately got his position, that it was handed to him on a silver platter, which up to that point it was. Tom will even say that he was a sports anchor and he wasn't even good at that yet, and all of a sudden he's an anchor, and then all of a sudden he's here.
But he's authentic. So that's what he's selling. That's what they're looking for. Say what you want about all of these people. And let's just, if you want to take modern parlance, take Dan Rather and Tom Brokaw. They sold authenticity to the American people, that they were coming at them and being honest with them. That's what William Hurt's character is selling. It makes perfect sense. And I'm sorry that Albert Brooks can't see that, but he doesn't bring that to the table the same way.
Like I said, I still think there's part of me that thinks he could do the job if Holly Hunter, Jane's character, was there. But we're also looking at change of the guard on how news was being reported. If you look at Jack Nicholson's character, he's not likable on air. He's very straight, narrow.
He's very condescending. You get that personality from him in his direction of the news.
Right. There's a changing of the guard that's happening. Like I said earlier with Jane's character, she was probably mentored in the old way of thinking. And Albert Brooks' character, probably the same way. Probably the old way of, I deserve this because I've done the legwork. I've paid my dues. It used to be you paid your dues and then you get rewarded for that. We now live in a society, and I think this changed around this particular time where it didn't matter what you did in the past. It's what somebody can do for you right at the moment. And the only reason why he even gets a shot was because everybody wanted the day off. But at the same time, I do agree with you to a certain extent that his character can be a little hard to swallow at the end because of what he says to her. I do think it's harsh. I don't think it's the right response. But at the same time, I can understand him being a little mean to her because she wants to feel better about herself, but she's not allowing him to feel better about himself.
I think she's looking for comfort.
She is, but she didn't give it to him when he needed it. She wanted to go and have sex with Tom. And I think it's payback. Right or wrong, that's what he does. When he needed her the most, she wanted to leave. She got upset because Tom canceled out on her. And here he is. He's had the worst night. He confesses his love to her. She rejects it. His dream job, that didn't work out either. And all he needs is his friend. And all she cares about is getting back to him to have sex.
Well,
that's true.
And here's the thing. She should have never went over there in the first place.
She was trying to be a good friend. She was trying to do both. She was trying to be a good friend and get some at the same time. I mean, if she just would have slept with Albert Brook, she would have got some and saw her best friend.
No.
Simple as that. I know. That's unrealistic. I don't see any sexual chemistry between them either.
As far as acting, though, goes, Albert Brooks was very good here. The way he plays the character is right, and you can see where this role was written for him, because you can't really see anybody else playing this character.
I love him sitting there by himself, listening to Italian music, and he's singing the song, and he's drinking. He's trying to do everything he can not to listen to the report, and then he caves in and listens to the report because that's what his job is. That's what his passion is.
He ends up listening to Midnight Train to Georgia.
That's what it was. Yeah, Midnight Train to Georgia.
But then he also was listening to some other type of...
Yeah, I don't know if it was the Spanish music that he was listening to because he had spent time in Nicaragua. That's a real interesting little trip that they went on to be embedded with the Contras. Yeah. When they were fighting the Sandinistas. I mean, that was a huge scandal at the time. Of course, we got the Oliver North hearings and the Iran-Contra scandal. To put that in the movie, that was very good.
Pretty
very
hot
good
around
placement.
that time, too.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to touch on the end. I know, Ted, you have your opinions on it and how it ended. So I want to give mine first to give you some time on your side. I'm going to tell you that I like the way this movie ended for the most part. I know there's an alternative ending that I watched where he gets in the cab with her and they make out and things. You don't know if they actually end up being together at the end, but it looks like they are at least going to be together for that night at least. And the speech that he gives her in that deleted scene is pretty good. He basically tells her the back and forth that she does with him is driving him insane. I thought it was a pretty decent deleted scene. But the reason why I like it is the fact that at the end of the day, they're all about their jobs. They choose their careers over each other. I think that's important because that's what you show throughout the whole movie. The writer-director of this movie, he basically said that he was unsure about the ending till the end because he didn't know who he wanted Jane to be with at the end. And then he just decided neither one. And I think it's the right decision here because, first of all, they all work together. Office and relationships normally don't work out anyway. So I think it's the right move. And then I love the fact that 7 years later, they're back working together again. And Tom has a fiance and she's got a boyfriend, but neither one of them are married. Could they try again? There is that possibility. I like the open-endedness of it. You know, if they kissed and they went off to whatever island they were going to go to, I don't think it would have lasted. I think their jobs would have got in the way. Basically, I think this is a better ending than that.
I love the ending of this movie. Quite simple. I think it's a great ending. I like the way it ties everything together, and it also leaves a lot of open questions on what could happen in the past. Could open up a sequel if it really wanted to go that direction, but of course it didn't.
You know, here's the thing.
Here we go.
Her getting on the plane I think is the better option. Maybe it wouldn't have worked out because ultimately he is going to London. If they just ended it there, where she gets on the plane and they go off together, that's where the movie has to end. We don't have to do the epilogue. But when we do the epilogue the 7 years later, in my opinion, his engagement is going to be done. Her boyfriend's going to be done. One, I think they're both more mature now. They both seem like they've accomplished what they want to accomplish. They're going to end up together. I wished that there would have been some sort of realization on Albert Brooks's character. He hasn't grown. Whereas the other two people, it seems like that they've grown. And that's why I think that ultimately that they'll end up together.
I don't know how you think they've grown. What indication gives you that they have grown?
Well, she's in a relationship.
2 or 3 months? I mean...
But she's never been in a relationship.
Okay, so she's going to be mature and break up with that guy that she's been in a relationship with to go with him now.
She's in a relationship. She's achieved in her field now what is essentially the top of the field. She has grown. She's trying new things. She's went outside of her comfort zone and is a bigger person.
But she's going to be his boss. There's no way that they can ever... Yes.
They're not going to be boss because they wanted him to be the director. And that's how it was in all the other times. She's not going to be his boss. They're going to be equals.
I don't think they're going to be equals. Eric, what's your thought about that? Are they equals?
No.
She even calls her boss when he leaves.
Yeah, they might try to be equals at first, but no. Ultimately, each one of them is going to be kind of going at each other, I think. I don't think they'll be equals. I don't think they're going to fall in love. I don't think they're going to end up together. But I do agree with Ted that I think both their relationships are going to go kaput. Probably for jealousy reasons from the other spouses, the girlfriend and the boyfriend. But I think they're going to have a kind of like a relationship that Brooks had with her. That kind of a friendly relationship. I think Hurt's character has grown up and he's not the sex-crazed anchor that he once was. I think he's matured, and he's probably looking for some type of a long-term relationship. I guess I want to know maybe a little bit more about the fiancée. She's kind of just a blurb, and she's kind of a little bitchy if you think about it. As I'm remembering it, she does. She does kind of look a little like, you know.
Like, I don't know why I'm here. I don't want to be here. Yeah. But we don't get anything about any of the other relationships. Why is he there with just his son?
Exactly.
Where's his wife? And where's her boyfriend? It just wouldn't work again.
No.
I just think even though they're maybe they are more mature because years have gone by. But
I would hope so.
History does have a way of repeating itself. And,
yes, it does.
One of the things I loved about their relationship was they never did have sex. Because of the fact it could easily been a one and done type of deal. One could have made one of the other characters look bad. And so it's easier for me to also let this relationship go a little bit. But there is a chance that 7 years later, they go out to dinner and have a few drinks and end up having sex together and realize it's a terrible mistake. That's another movie, like Eric said, that never got made. So overall, I do like the ending. She ended up with him at the end. I wouldn't have been too disappointed either, but I like where it ends.
So why don't we roll into our reviews of this movie? We'll start off with Ken. I'm curious to see what his thoughts are.
So I'm really happy we did this movie. I was going into this movie thinking, yeah, I like this movie. It's probably somewhere in the B minus range from how I remembered it. It's been a while, but I've matured too. So let's take a look at this movie and see what I think about it. The performances are great. And this movie is what actually got me into Albert Brook's movies. I love him in this role. And then we're going to be doing Defending Your Life next. And it's the same type of humor, the same type of delivery. But we got to remember that he's kind of playing this as a straight guy who just has a sense of humor. Whereas in other movies, like in Defending Your Life, it's more of plain comedy that has some straight elements to it. This movie is very interesting for me, and I think he should have won Best Supporting Actor over Sean Connery's Untouchables. Holly Hunter, I'm surprised. I would have to look to see who won that year, but she was fantastic in this, and I would have given her this one over The Piano any day. This movie, even though it wasn't written for her, it feels like it's written for her. And that's the thing about this movie, is you have the Albert Brooks character. His character was written for him. The other two weren't written for them, but it feels like they were because they're so good at what they do. I'm going to go with a B+ on this movie. It's very enjoyable. I'm extremely happy that we came back to it. If I wait another 10 years to watch this again, that would be just plain old stupid on my part.
Cool. Well, my review is mirrors Ken's very, very closely. This was actually the first Albert Brooks movie I saw as well, too. And it kind of turned me on to him as well. It was such a big movie in '87. You couldn't go anywhere and not really hear anything about it. I think it's a great movie. I think the characters are phenomenal. I think it's written well. The screenplay is great. Actually, there's really nothing negative I can say about the movie. There's very few things I can say that are flawed about the movie. There are some slow parts. There are a few things that maybe you don't need, kind of drags a little bit here and there. But overall, this movie, for the most part, keeps your attention. It's a great screenplay. I can't think of any other actors that I would want in this role. Now, Holly Hunter, it really was made for her, and she did not have a lot of roles before or after, and I don't even know what Holly Hunter's doing these days. That's a name you don't hear much anymore, especially after The Piano. It's not one of those big leading ladies, but this is a great movie. This is one I'll probably watch every year. If I'm thinking of Albert Brooks, might throw on one of the other ones as well, too. Or maybe even one we haven't looked at. He does have a few other movies out there in video format and the web that you can go out and take a look at. For me, I'm going with Ken. This is a solid B+, no questions asked. Take us home, Ted. What are your thoughts?
Before I get into that, I think the person who won Best Actress that year was Cher for Moonstruck.
Oh, okay. Cher for Moonstruck?
I still give it to Holly Hunter. I guess I'm not a big Moonstruck person.
Holly Hunter was supporting?
No, Best Actress.
That would have been Cher then.
Cher.
For Moonstruck, yeah.
You're not going to beat Cher. That ain't going to happen.
That's a tough go.
That was a great year for Cher. I mean, Cher had everything going for her that year, but because of the type of movie I like, I give it to Holly Hunter. I relate more to the character and the acting performance and things of that nature. I'm not saying anything wrong about Cher's performance. It's a well-deserved least nomination, but the movie, it's not as good as broadcast news is.
At the end of the day, I agree with Ken. I'm glad that we did this because I'm very happy that I got to revisit this movie. Seeing it with a more seasoned movie-going eyes, it increased its likability for me. There's not much more that can be said about the writing here. It's a wonderful screenplay. It's very tight. Not a lot of wasted movement in the movie. I disagree a little bit with her because I don't think that there's really a down moment in the movie. I think it keeps your attention all the time.
Well, you're wrong, Ted.
I know. And it's a very enjoyable 2 hours.
Oh, yeah. No. Don't get me wrong. It's a very enjoyable 2 hours, without a doubt.
Yeah. Obviously, because I felt passionately one way about the love interest part of it, I think that that's a real interesting take away from this movie, because here again, I like movies that we see this in, let's say it's 1987, the three of us go see this in the movie theater, we can go have a burger afterwards and have this same discussion. And it's a discussion movie, because Ken sees things one way differently than I do, and we all bring a unique perspective to this. And I think that that's really the tale of a really good movie.
Yeah.
Is that you can appeal to everybody.
Movies that have really good writing hold up the test of time.
Right. It's a good movie, and it's undeniable. I'm kind of actually shocked that it wasn't named in the 100 movies by the AFI, because it is that good, in my opinion. This movie, I'm going to agree with this. I think this is a first for the podcast in 60-some episodes. I'm giving it a B+ too.
Whoa.
And I had that in my mind before
Armageddon.
Before the two of you.
We're like a slot machine, man. 3 cherries, right? Beep, 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 beep,
yeah.
beep. Good job.
We did a little behind the scenes. We do not tell each other what our grades are before we record.
We might say, what the heck did you get me into after we've seen it?
If you haven't seen this movie, this is definitely one that I highly recommend you go see. It's well worth your time. It's a really, really good movie.
Definitely, I think we can all agree. First time, B+ for all of us. You gotta like
Yeah,
that.
I think that's the first
there's
time
a-
all three of us agreed.
And there's a lot more things in this movie that we didn't touch on. There's so many great scenes,
No.
and so many great lines. We could take a long time dissecting this movie. I didn't even mention that the scene where they're with the Contras, the director or writer had indicated that Holly Hunter's character actually was sexually attracted to Albert Brook's character at that moment because there's that
Under
possibility
fire.
they could be, they could possibly die, and he's showing strength, and she saw that as an attraction. So we didn't even get into any of that kind of stuff, but definitely watch this movie if you haven't. For 2 hours and 13 minutes, it goes by nicely. I agree with Ted more and with Eric in this. I don't see a part where it drags at all. I think everything is done at a very good pace. The only thing I would have taken away was the after sex scene. That's the only part
The
I would
shadow.
and then you could have made it like a 2 hour and 8 minute movie, and
That's an odd
it
scene.
doesn't hurt the film. It doesn't help the film. It's just kind of there.
It's like,
That-
okay.
That's about it.
Yeah. I think it stands the test of time, too. This is a case where we are dealing with older technology with some of this stuff, but I think it still stands the test of time. It doesn't ever feel dated.
And that's because of the writing.
Except for the Sandinistas and the Contras.
Yeah,
I mean, that, of course, is dated.
But it's because of the writing. Anybody who watches it now can still understand everything that's going on because the technology doesn't dictate the movie.
Right, it's
the
character-based.
writing.
Yeah,
Exactly.
it's character-based.
All right. Well, that's all the time we have for broadcast news. Ted, tell us where they can find us out there on the World Wide Web.
We can be found on Twitter at @hookedon_movies. And whatever platform you're listening to us on, whether it be Apple, Spotify, Good Pods, if you can, leave us a 5-star review, leave us a rating. Don't forget to click subscribe. All of that makes a difference, and maybe hopefully one day we will be Rotten Tomatoes certified.
Maybe we will, Lois. Maybe we will. Ken, Facebook, what are they saying about us? Or what are you saying about us?
I'm always saying that we're good because we are. Join our Facebook page, Hooked on Movies. Request to be invited, and we'll grant you access. And we like to talk about movies on that page. We'll share some scenes from each movie that we review. We'll tell you about some other things that are going on in the movie industry. Also, just to let you know, next week we're going to be finishing up our Albert Brooks month with Defending Your Life. And then in May the Force be with you, we're doing Star Wars. So we're looking
Now
forward
we're
to doing that.
The
Yeah.
good ones.
The good ones.
Exactly.
The original trilogy, the episodes 4, 5, and 6. And then in June, we're going to be doing some movies from Spike Lee. So we'll be looking forward to that. But definitely join in the conversation. Let us know what you're interested in talking about. We would like to converse with you and have a good time.
All right. It's all the time we have for this episode, everyone. Thanks for listening. And as always, I'm not wearing any pants. Film at 11.
See you at the movies.
See you next time at Hooked on Movies.